You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Hello, welcome to Paranormal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Melick and psychic demonologist Jennifer Celsius-Melick as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, crimes, and corruption, with top analysis from the experts of these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's here on Paraversal Universe. Here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, welcome to Paraversal Universe, brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rylander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malick.
What's up, everybody?
Paraversal Universe is produced by Kat Hobson, the voice of Fate Magazine Radio over at WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We're also heard on WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, High Point Radio 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New York and New Jersey, and the Rift Radio Network family based out of Lakeside, Virginia. Welcome one and all, and hello to everybody in the chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments as always. The archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our archives-like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also, check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's coming up in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well, as always. It's been so hot out. So we hope you're staying cool and safe, as there's been a lot of storms, too, across the country. But we have a fantastic show coming up. We will be talking to psychic Jock Brocas. But first, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Now, shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners. We always appreciate it greatly, and we thank you kindly. Who do we have?
This week we have Walt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Katrina Cooper, Dennis Koch, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, Jamie Demelos, JJ Paranormal, Metaphysical Bounce, Howie Eldell from The Orion Effect, Kat Hobson at WBHM, Lawrence Demiza, Jean Broida, Lisa Reynaga, The Rift, Sudan, Lori Kreslaw, Dr. Chuck Kennedy of the Project PSI Institute, Ty Ward, Fate Magazine Radio, Clairvoyance, and Jock Brocas, Paranormal Daily News.
Thank you, everyone. We're still not sure how we're going to deal with the shout-outs in the future. Because a couple of weeks ago, Facebook stopped showing us everybody who was sharing our content. So now when I see the notifications and it says, what it will say is so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so ... shared whatever. But when I click on it, it only goes to that first name.
Right.
So I can't even see. We both tried on phone and on laptop. It's something they've changed, right. And we were hoping it was a glitch or something, but it's still like that.
Right, and we would like to give a thanks and shout outs to those out there who shared our banners, and we were, to those of you that shared our banners and we weren't able to see them, thank you very much. Your support means a lot.
Right. So as far as shout outs in the future, we haven't decided how we're going to do that. It's not something we want to stop doing. But if we don't have all the names, it becomes difficult. So we'll see how that goes. And yes, thank you so much, even for those people that we're not aware of and that we haven't mentioned. Thank you. So our guest for this broadcast is the founder of the Paranormal Daily News. His name is Jock Brocas. He is an evidential medium and a demonologist. He's also the author of the best-selling Deadly Departed. He has interviewed Jennifer and myself before on his show, which is also called Deadly Departed, and today is our chance to do the same. So without further ado, shall we bring him on?
Yes.
Jock, are you with us?
I am, yes. And mind, body, and soul, guys. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on Paraversal Universe.
Yeah.
I've been excited about this. I know we tried before, but the best laid plans of mice and men seem to go awry at times. But we got there in the end.
Yes, that's right. We initially scheduled. We had you scheduled months ago.
Yeah.
Even
That's
before
right.
you interviewed us, and we had to reschedule that.
Yeah, there's that saying, man makes plans, God laughs.
That's true. I love that. I didn't put that in a quote somewhere.
And that could very well be, because there could be somebody out there, there probably is somebody out there that is listening that is going to need to hear what you have to say. So,
well, I hopefully we can spread a little knowledge and share what little knowledge we have.
So we always ask our first-time guests to tell us how they got into their respective fields. And in your case, that's metaphysics and theology. So I guess if you could tell us about your beginnings in the field.
Well, there's an old cliche where when you speak to a medium, they always say, well, I was like that as a kid and everything else. And I suppose I was, but I didn't know the difference. I couldn't tell black from white when I was a kid. So at the end of the day, for me to be able to say, yeah, I was like that when I was a child, I guess that's probably not really true. And it's probably the same with everybody, because although I had experiences, I didn't know what it was from left to right, really. But I was always spiritual, and that's one thing that I can say. I always had a different outlook to spirituality and religion, and I was fascinated by religions. My uncle was a monk in a monastery, in the Redemptorist Monastery in Canoe in Perth. My earliest recollections was that I wanted to be a priest ever since I was a kid. And, I have memories of my uncle, when he came to visit from the monastery, and he was, sitting in my uncle's, I think the pub that they had in Scotland at the time, or where they were. He would sit me in the chair in front of everybody and show how I could say my prayers earlier than anybody else. So I suppose I always kind of had it. But the funny thing is that my father wasn't religious. My father was Masonic, was Protestant. My mother was Catholic. My granny was a convert. So you kind of could say that I had a bit of a Heinz 57 variety all mixed into one. But as I generally started to develop as a child, the spiritual aspect of my life, and I suppose at the time the religious aspect was very, very, very important to me. And I found that I wanted to spend most of my time, if not all possible time that I could get, in the monastery. And so I would go to the monastery, whenever we were off school, I wanted to go to the monastery. I was happier there more than anything else. I went on religious retreats. I kind of conversed probably way beyond my years. I was even interested in the paranormal back then. I was interested. I was reading books that I should never have read when I was younger, and that I used to get chastised about. And I had a deep longing for knowledge and that side of things. And the interesting thing is when I went on a lot of these retreats or I went to the monastery, what I was being taught from a religious perspective wasn't what was feeling in my heart. It wasn't, I knew that there was something that was greater. I knew there was God. I knew there was Jesus Christ. But I knew there was a lot more. And I knew that many religions had, different thoughts and different aspects to them, but they all had some kind of parallel belief system. And so from a very, very young age, I even studied all that. I started to read, when kids were out playing football and, playing soldiers down the woods and things, I was very studious. I was studying spirituality and religion and that kind of thing. So I kind of had a normal but an abnormal upbringing, if you like. When I went to high school, I was always going to church and spending most of my time in the churches and researching, and I suppose that's kind of what it boiled down to. And of course, everybody, I got probably chastised and even bullied for the way I was, being so spiritual. And I think everybody really expected me to go and live that religious life, but instead I joined the army, and I just completely did a whole 180 degrees turn. Went from that spiritual, chasing the religious and chasing the collar, to becoming a soldier. And so I think I had a great deal of varied experience and upbringing since I was young.
That's very, the different theologies you mentioned, that is diverse. And it's more diverse than the average person grows up with. And I know in most Christianity, because of translations being skewed and other things, the term medium or the idea of that is frowned upon. And you are one of the few people I know who, and just like Jennifer, and there are a few others who respect the Word of God, but also understand that the gifts they have is a tool, and just like any tool, it can be used for either good or bad. And that
absolutely.
So, for you, was that a big was that like a catalyst for you, I guess, joining the army, or just not choosing that lifestyle? Did that have anything to do with it? Because you had mentioned it.
Not really. I think, when my uncle passed, I've experienced a lot of grief in my life. I've lost friends in the military. I've lost friends that have been close to me. I lost people that's grown up with me. I've lost uncles, family members. I've experienced. I was once asked, in a group that I was running, people would say, "Well, what makes you an expert on grief?" There's so many mediums out there that are so young and don't really have experience and haven't really experienced grief as such. And then I kind of let it rip and said, well, I have lost a tremendous amount of people close to me. So I have experienced grief at probably every level you can imagine. So I think I'm well within my experience to be able to have some kind of empathy. And I think, the big change for me, going into the army was actually probably the catalyst was the passing of my uncle Tom. His name was Brother Magella. I was very close to my uncle, and I at the time before he actually passed, just before it, I was planning a life in the priesthood. I was planning to go the whole hog, do the 7 years training. I went through the application. I remember going to Birmingham to I can't remember the name of the place in Birmingham, but it was one of the Redemptorist houses. And it was where we were having our last kind of that discussion before you actually went in and decided to take orders or not. And I had everything all set. That was my life. I was going to serve my life to God. I was going to, when I was young and in the monastery, guys, I think I told you this before. I used to go out and feed the poor, and I would go out and feed prisoners, and I'd go to the prisons I'd be with the brothers and the nuns when they came, and so I had a great deal of experience in seeing all aspects of life, from complete poverty to people that were very rich and stuff, you know. So I think I had a decent fair bit of experience, but what I wasn't prepared for was losing my uncle. How would it actually affect me more than anything? Even though I'd lost my gran and stuff before, losing my uncle and that connection to the monastery, I think actually probably struck me in grief a lot harder than I thought, because I remember going in to the final interview, the final office, and I was told that they weren't going to accept me at this time because it was too close to my uncle's passing, and that I should perhaps go and take a couple of years out and reevaluate what I should be doing, and then go back to the priesthood. What do you do? You know, at the end of the day, what do you do when your whole life has been turned upside down like that? You know, when you've planned your whole life and you've planned to serve God in that way, and then you're told, you know, we don't want you at the moment because you're maybe not psychologically ready for it due to this thing that happened. That totally turned me upside down. So I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have a great relationship with my father. Things were very strained. I suppose part of me joining the military was to get away from the family life and to experience that kind of thing. But I never for once expected that I'd have a military career. I never expected me to get into the military. For me, it was always going to be a religious life. And then I went and I sat exams for the Royal Air Force, and I could get a chance to get into the Royal Air Force as military police. And then I just didn't know what I was going to do. I was in and out of different jobs and things, and I wasn't settled. And then I had the chance. I went and took the exam for the Army on the Wednesday, and I was gone by Saturday. That quick. And so my whole life then changed. But what I will say is that the spiritual spark within me, that divine essence that was me, never really left me, because I then found myself in the army conversing with the chaplain, and then, you know, when we got a chance for the soldiers to go and speak to the chaplain, and there, instead of there being like, you know, maybe 100 young soldiers there or so, there was me and one other person that would turn up and go and speak. So it never left me. The interest was always there. So it's amazing how things change and how one event in your life can change your whole plan. I wouldn't change it for nothing, because, you know, the experiences have made me who I am. I met, you know, later in life, I met Joanne, you know, who's my absolute, you know, she's my angel, she's my rock. I'm never far away from her, just like you and Jen, you know, you're such a peas in the pod, you know, that we're like that, you know. And so I think that divine plan was just all part of it, you know. Had I not experienced what I experienced, I don't think I would be where I am today. And had I gone into the priesthood and not, you know, went the path that I'm on now, then maybe, you know, I wouldn't be serving God in the way that I am now. And I think, you know, I'm better serving the way I am now than putting a cast on, or putting a collar on.
Well, you certainly are reaching a lot of people, and that's a good thing.
Why don't we take our first commercial break? You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, and we'd like to take a minute to thank everybody who makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stenz, announcer Frank Lee, producer and owner at WBHM Kat Hobson, also to Howie Odell and Lisa Renaga and the Rift family, and to Michael Vera over at WCET-FM. Thank you all for carrying our content and working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere.
Yes, thank you.
And of course, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity to be here with you all.
Amen.
In appreciation to all the various platforms we are on, including iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Dailymotion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Radio Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. Alrighty, this segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team and also by the Paranormal Daily News, who now have a page on their website dedicated to excellent paranormal radio shows like Paraversal Universe, where our latest episodes are listed and linked.
All right, and if you haven't yet, check them out.
This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to evidential medium and demonologist Jock Brocas from the Paranormal Daily News. Jock, are you still with us?
I am, and you know something, I'm just going to jump in because many people call me a demonologist, and I don't sit with that well, and I don't mind when people call me it, but I tend to then say, I'm probably more a spirit interventionist because, yes, we study demonology, but I think that term, I think we've spoke about this, guys. We've spoken about this before. That term is bandied about so much, like mediums, psychic mediums and mediums, and it's not. I think a lot of it's not as respected as it should be. We have so much frauds and fake and people that don't understand it, that do more damage. And I think the term is now becoming, so synonymous with, negative things that, So I tend to,
when we've noticed that, and we were talking, we noticed too that some demonologists are putting, for example, religious demonologists, Christian demonologists, Catholic demonologists, just to make sure people understand that it's not, because you're right, half the demonologists out there technically are into the dark stuff.
Right. And
because it's really the study of what that is and what that's about.
Right. And just because you see one that may say that they're a demonologist on TV doesn't make you one in the instance that you see one on TV.
No, absolutely not. I saw a little while ago someone claiming it was a demonologist who was also a witch and a warlock. So, I mean, where does that mix?
Yeah. And you know what? Technically, they're correct. But right, So yeah, that's something that we have noticed, and we discuss between us and stuff. And
well, it's like if you look at the TV shows this year, the theme is once again demons.
Yeah. Well, that's.
And I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and here's the thing, and I've said this a lot of the time, and you guys, I know you guys agree. We don't have any scientific base for demons, right? And we're talking about a malevolent intelligence that is way beyond our capacity, that is so intelligent and so far beyond us, it's unreal. They ain't going to show themselves on a frigging TV show. They ain't going to show themselves on an infrared camera.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if there is a malevolent intelligence in there, it's going to take a long time before you really start to get anything that's remotely... they're very cunning. We've talked about this time and time again. They're very intelligent. They're going to do things slowly, like a whispering breeze that you don't even feel, that you don't know. It takes a massive amount of discernment, a massive amount of understanding. You are not going to walk in with a paranormal team and say, there's a demon in here.
No.
It just doesn't happen like that.
Right. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Just like, and, we get people that will want to send us pictures. We think we have a demon and this and that, and I have pictures. And, well, I understand taking pictures of injuries. But when people think they're catching demons on cameras, it's like, I can guarantee you your case will not be determined on the photos you take of things that you think are demons.
No. No.
We're interested in everything else. Like, but the photos, it's just like your case will not be.
It's part of a pattern. Yeah, it's part of a pattern. You want to identify the pattern, the background, the story. You want to. There's going to be a malevolent. There's going to be an intelligence behind the pattern, and some of these patterns, most people, 90% of people, will put that aside as something psychological, imbalance, medical, or something. And they often miss the very subtle signs that it might actually be something. And this is why it does more danger and more damage to families when you have uninformed, I want to say, ignorant people, not so much trained, but uninformed and ignorant people that are just too ready to jump into a possible case. And then the first thing they go and do is there anybody there? If you're a demon, show yourself. Can you talk to me? Can you speak to me on my EVP? I mean, you've just invited the thing in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we've talked about it before, and the three of us have talked about it. When you had us on, we talked about it on our shows all the time. A lot of people realize it, but there are some people out there that don't realize this. These things have no sense of time. They were around when the earth was created. They have knowledge of everything and every single person walking around on this planet.
Right, and to say that they don't understand this, or to say they understand it so well that we can't fathom it.
Right.
You know, but yeah, they don't have. I mean, time to them is different, and it says so right in the Bible.
Right,
that they perceive time differently.
Right, and like you were just saying, a few minutes ago, if you go into these places and you poke and prod, you don't know it's there. Even if you know if it's demonic, you don't want to do that because you can't sit there and assume that you watch something that's on TV that's demonic, that it's not going to do much harm than what you see on TV. There are layers to these beings. And yeah, you may not get any retaliation at the time that you go in and you do this provocation, but these things can wait. They're good at that. They'll get you when you're not expecting it. And they'll hit every single area of your life that they could possibly hit.
Absolutely. And you won't even know. And it might manifest years later. And I've always said this, the battlefield is, I was lucky. We were talking before at the break. When I was younger and I was back in the monastery, I got chastised a number of times. Because I would bring in books, or I'd study old books, and I remember bringing in a book on witchcraft that I was studying, and that's kind of not what you do in the monastery, and it's not what you do. And I got into a row, but I needed to know because I wanted to know. And I'll never forget the time that I was lectured by the rector and said, not Jock, obviously, because it's John. This is there's good and there's evil, and evil can even come here. I was told this as a young person. I was given that advice and that lesson and that knowledge of that very young in a monastery when they lectured me about it and how it happened. Now, rather than it frighten kids off and them not dealing with it, it just made me hungrier. I just wanted to know more. So I had to be very careful at how I sneaked any books in or how I did anything. But I was very knowledgeable of that side of things. So you start to learn, and you start to over your whole. You kind of realize that you're being guided because this is maybe something you're going to deal with later on in life. And I suppose when you think about it, there is no time. I was obviously guided in that direction from I was a very, very young age, and anything that is remotely negative, that is a malevolent intelligence. I'm not going to use the word demon, daimon, or anything out there because I like to use the word malevolent intelligence because whatever you label it, it's still a malevolent intelligence that's way beyond you. They've known there is no time. They knew about me way back in the day. They knew about my life and everything. And I've had, like yourself, I've had bad experiences with it. And, it's part of the gauntlet that you go through. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wouldn't want anybody to really delve in it. But there seems to be this whole idea of, it's so cool to do it. It's a bit like mediumship. Why did I write Deadly Departed? I wrote Deadly Departed really to awaken people to the fact that everything is not a bed of roses.
Right.
And that if you're going to cross the veil and you're going to go into that other side, you better be prepared for the consequences. And you better learn. I would rather people learn and get knowledge of it so that they can able to at least discern some amount of it, some level of it. To be able to do it. Not every medium is going to deal with it, and I don't expect them to. But even in grief, people that need to understand it just from grief, because people who are suffering grief are easily targets as well for demoniacal or malevolent forces. So, we need to be knowledgeable about it, but we also need to understand it.
So, before we get into your book, and we have it right here. What happened? So you get out of the army, right? And then what happens? Because you founded the Paranormal Daily News, and you also wrote Deadly Departed. Which one came first? How did that all come about?
Well, in actual fact, I wrote Powers of the Sixth Sense at first because I actually used to be a bodyguard. When I came out of the army, I worked in high risk security, and I worked as as a bouncer, and I wrote the Powers of the Sixth Sense just after 9/11. I then, Deadly Departed, I would say, is my magnum opus. It's the one that I always wanted to write. It was 9 years in the making. Paranormal Daily News, well, as you know, I am involved in marketing and things as well, and Paranormal Daily News was an old domain that was bad in Google's eyes, and it had no authority. It was just somebody had taken it to set up a little site many, many, many years ago, I bought it in an auction for so many dollars, and I thought, I'm going to make this an educational resource. And it took me years. And it took me years to turn it around, to clean it up, to get good quality stuff on it. And that's what it's become. It was then accepted into Google News, and it has thousands and thousands and thousands of visitors and readers, and we want to keep that there. But that wasn't where the book was obviously done. But, it was probably part of the journey. But Paranormal Daily News and Deadly Departed was completely different. I actually wrote Deadly Departed to help developing mediums, to help paranormal researchers, and to help people who were grieving to understand the afterlife at a more fundamental, deeper level. If I'm going to be a kid in a monastery and the rector's going to tell me that there's good and evil and this is how evil works as well, and that also evil can and will trample on holy ground, depending on who they are, then I want my peers, I want people that are out there helping people through grief, and I want people that are out there helping, and I don't want to say paranormal teams that are just out and thrill seekers as the term is, but paranormal teams who are responding respectfully to people who are under spiritual subjugation. I want them to be prepared. I want them to be knowledgeable, and I want them to be able to discern, and I want them to take it seriously and realize that it ain't just a Saturday or a Sunday night out, and it's that people are suffering. That if people are calling you for a problem, they're suffering, and people who are grieving are suffering. So there's suffering there. So there's Deadly Departed is a passion. It has a life of its own. It's continually going to develop. I'm in the process of writing the Deadly Departed companion guide at the moment, and then I'll come out with a more in-depth version. But I wanted Deadly Departed also to be a movement, not just a book. We have a group, although it's small, because a lot of mediums don't want to admit that there's evil there and come in and join and talk about it. But I teach regularly, and people ask me questions, and I teach lessons online on my YouTube channel. People that have read the book that are having problems will approach us. Mediums who are experience things but don't want their peers to know about it approach me privately. So it has a life of its own. It's not just a book.
I'm looking at the table of contents, and
it's quite a bit.
It's an amazing book.
Yeah, you even have an index in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a very thorough book, for sure. A very thorough book.
It's amazing, and it's one that everybody that's either a medium or an up-and-coming medium in this field needs to have. And it's an incredible book. I mean, like you were just saying a minute or two ago, you have people out there that come into this thinking that the spirit world is all sunshine and rainbows. They either don't really, you have ones that refuse to believe in anything negative, or you have ones that don't realize that there are dangerous pitfalls to this kind of work. And I think it's amazing that you were able to put all this in such a wonderful format and as a resource for people in need.
That's exactly what it was. I think there's a couple of points that make me feel really good. When people like you that run professional paranormal organizations that use it for the library, to have it in your resource is amazing. I've got a copy that's gone to the parapsychological organization in New York that's going there, that are going to have it. I've got other parapsychological organizations that have had it, researchers, doctors that have supported it. And the best thing is, when I have grieving parents, or I actually have people who are grieving that get it, and it teaches them, and they learn more about it, and they want to learn properly, and they come and they ask questions, and that's just, for me, it's a massive resource. I had someone in a university approach me recently who wanted to use excerpts of it for their thesis. And that's, for me, that's it. It's not just about putting a storybook out there to try and make money, or to try and feed the ego of mediums or any other organization. It's an educational resource, and this is just the start of it. This is just the version, and it's been done in such a way that you can refer to it any time, and you can learn from it. And I have so many people that are using it as an educational resource for themselves and for I actually even have mediumship organizations and groups that use it, that will say to their students, you need to study this before you even come to development, or before you go on this workshop or this course, study this book. And that makes me that just touches my heart. It's just that it's doing the right thing. But, consequently, I also have the naysayers that say there's no such thing as evil, and that you don't need to worry about it, and we don't even need to say a prayer before we do anything. And it's absolutely ridiculous to think about it, and you think, oh my God, I really feel sorry for these people to not actually realise that there is actually a danger out there. And, at the end of the day, we have a world that is full of evil in it. You can just look around the world and you can see evil. You can see so much good as well.
And the people that are running the show, or the mortal powers that be, certainly are aware of it, and they even they base their theology around it. I mean, and if they take it seriously, then exactly.
All right, so why don't we take our next commercial break?
Okay.
You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our second break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are on MeWe and Twitter. Our liking group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, check out our Society's like page on Facebook, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, as well as Jennifer's like page, Jennifer Malik, Psychic Demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see. We always appreciate it. This segment is brought to you by the Breezer Files on YouTube. Nick and Heather Breezer, paranormal investigators who are members of the NWPS. So go check that out. And any comments for this week's show can be addressed in the chat room. Let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to evidential medium and spirit interventionalist Jock Brocas from the Paranormal Daily News.
It is a bit a mouthful. It is a mouthful, I have to say.
Yeah.
So before we hit break, a question came in for you from the chat room.
Sure.
So the question comes from Sudan. How does the guest reconcile the Western Christian view of demons versus the Asian view of demons, such as in Tibet?
You know, at the end of the day, look, religion to me is a man-made thing. It's not something that's divinely given as law. It's man-made. Religion is man-made, and I think we can all agree that. And I think the reality is that whether it's jinn, whether it's demons, whether you call it daimon, they're also perceptive. They're also perceptions that each faith, each religion, or each culture has placed upon an intelligence, whether it's a spirit intelligence, benevolent or malevolent. So I think to reconcile them, here's what I would say, and a great question. A spirit intelligence is it's an intelligence that's beyond us. Whether it's benevolent or malevolent, it's still a force that's beyond our understanding. There is an equal balance of good and evil. Jinn has, if you study jinn, they've got the light and the dark aspects. They've got good and evil aspects. And I think in Buddhism you have the same kind of idea. The reality is, whether it's Christian, whether it's jinn, whether it's any other, even Greek mythology, these are intelligent forces. And so I wouldn't want to reconcile them, because the way that I look at it is that these are intelligent spiritual forces. One is benevolent, one is malevolent. Each has its own power of discernment, and each has its own will. And so malevolent intelligence that has gone against the grain of God, or that has, even from any other religion, that has gone against their own belief system or their own laws, we have to understand that there is spiritual divine law. And spiritual divine law is not based on any given religion or any given creed or philosophy. The reality is that these things are intelligent beings with discernment and will that can be utilized for good or for bad. We want to be able to get an understanding of each side of it, because, better the enemy that you know than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Yeah, it's a good perspective.
This is why, guys, as well, right? This is why, if I get asked to go and investigate something, and they'll maybe say, or somebody asks me for help, or they ask even just for understanding, and they say it's a demon, I will still utilize the term, this is a malevolent intelligence, or this is an intelligence, this is a spirit intelligence. I try not to label, right? Because jinn are just as bad as demons, and jinn have the good side, the bad side, the genie that you think about back in all cultures. I mean, you have, in Native American folklore, we have skinwalker, spirit walk. We have all of them. So, but at the end of the day, no matter what they've been given or labeled, it is a spirit intelligence that's beyond ours. And even though that we're divine beings and we have that spark of divinity in us, that allows us to be able to discern at a certain level. Discernment is something that we develop. It's not something that we learn.
Well, it's like the Pantheon.
There is, yeah.
Well, I'm just using that as an example for what you were talking about before, with different names for basically the same beings, the same energies, the same whatever. And these are energies, beings that humanity has been aware of for quite some time. And then, of course, you got divination or denomination comes along and is basically man's views or man's interpretations of.
And secularizes it or categorizes it into something. Now, if we let's go back to ancient Sumeria. You go back to Sumeria and Mesopotamia when people demons were protectors. They looked at them as protectors. Now, let's even look at an example for our friend in the chat room, a friend of maybe in Muslim or ancient, Asian culture where they have the jinn. The jinn were good and bad. It means that there's a capacity, even though that spirit being had a protective job, it doesn't mean that it didn't have a capacity for malevolence. Because if you went against what that stood for, then there was retribution. It inflicted retribution. And a lot of, you look back in history, a lot of the historical things where they think, medical issues and disease come from spirit imbalance, if you like, So it don't matter what we call it. It's a malevolent intelligence or it's a benevolent intelligence.
So we have another, I could not agree more. And we have another question for you from the chat room. How does one distinguish between external real-world demons versus internal, such as hallucinations or topas?
That's a good question, because you know as well as I do that an external demon can affect internally just the same.
Yeah.
And they'll notice someone's having an internal issue, and then that becomes a dinner bell, and they come in and utilize it.
They'll feed off.
Yeah, exactly. Look, things can happen externally, but it can also happen internally, and it can be one and the same, because we have to. Let's go to physics, right? In physics, we're basically energy, right? And the table that I'm sitting in front of now, as we know, atoms that are vibrating at a tremendous rate. Everything is energy. Energy can't be destroyed. We can manipulate it. We can go back. Now, being that a malevolent intelligence, when we think about these topas, or we think about an internal issue from a spirit or an external issue from a spirit, it is not broken down by barriers such as the physical or biological function of the body that makes it different. They can just affect us just as much externally as they can internally. And at the end of the day, if there's a weakness in you, either spiritually, emotionally, physically, or maybe you've dabbled, then that external force can then become internal. I want to take an example, and I'm going to go to a friend of mine, Bob Cranmer, who I recently interviewed. I have a great deal of respect for him. I know a lot of people say he wrote the book and everything else just to make money, but I've got to know this gentleman, okay? And a lot of people will say, well, there was nobody that was exorcised, or there was nobody in that case in Brownsville Road that was, as you and I would understand it, Jen, would be demoniacally possessed to the diabolical level. We had an external infestation, right? But that external infestation also affected them internally, because you had a family that ended up in psychiatric care, and God bless David, but he lost his son who took his life through suicide. And if I've talked to Bob about it, and he's convinced that it was he was influenced by the other side, and I probably am convinced about it too. When you have a look at the whole case and everything else. So that's a great example of how an external force can also operate internally. How do we not know that Bob was actually infested himself, and everything was working as a team? We do know that in demonology we have the same as any a breakdown of seraphim, cherubim. We have the demoniacal, angelic breakdown, and demons and devils, and there's a hierarchy. There's an intelligence behind it. There's a who's to know that they weren't working in a team? Who's to know that and we don't have the evidence of that. So I would say it's wrong to just say that this is either internal or external, and to treat it as both. Because whether it's an external influence in a home, a haunted home, or wherever location, doesn't mean that it's not affecting internally either. And it depends on the person. It depends on the spiritual vibration of the person, maybe the life that they've led. Is there weaknesses in that person? Is there weaknesses in the relationships that they have with others that are causing perhaps a break in the chain that's allowing something in? It's not just about that individual. It could be the environment.
Yeah, and another thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Actually, I was just going to say, so do we really need to categorize them as internal and external? No, I don't think we do.
No, because I have to agree, they work on both. And, when it comes to the demonic hierarchy, for people out there who are listening who may not be aware, when the demonic work, they work similar to the military. They have a military ranking. So you have your lowest of the low on the totem pole, so to speak, and then you have the highest ones that are working.
And here's the other thing I want people to understand as well, and this is misunderstood. Demons operate, I'm using the word demon. Let me go back. Malevolent intelligence, let's use the word demon. They still operate under divine law. Divine law governs everything. They came from that divine essence, the divine spark, God. They cannot go against divine law. So let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen who's listening, demons cannot just kill you, pick up a knife and stab you. But what they can do is they can influence another person to do it.
Yeah.
So yes, they can kill you, but no, they can't do it directly, because there's divine law in operation, and divine law is perfect in its operation and perfect in its balance. But as they're free will, and they have free will just like we have free will, they can influence others. So maybe that's what happened to David. He was influenced and took his own life. I mean, it kind of points everything to it, bearing the fact that everything that they went through. And the other thing is when some skeptics then say, yeah, but what about a case where I've been in a haunted house and absolutely felt nothing? Well, maybe you're not sensitive enough, and maybe there's some people are more attuned that will feel it more than others. But it doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist. I mean, I know of cases where complete skeptics and people who are non-religious have experienced things. We had a case in the Highlands of Scotland. Guy was totally skeptical. He actually couldn't believe it when one of his ornaments went flying across his face one night. That's kind of not exactly chosen by his belief system or his religious bearing. Guy didn't believe in God, and the guy didn't believe in mediumship, afterlife, or anything. But he was quick enough. They were quick enough to pick up the phone.
Right, and then that when it comes to skeptics, I want to say really quickly, is that when it comes to spirits, whether they're evil inhuman or evil human, they don't work on cue. We've gone into places, where we've had regular human spirits. We'll get activity. We'll go back maybe a second time. We go back, there's nothing. And that's normal. It happens. I think people are so misled by TV and the fact that every time these people go into places, there's always activity. We know from us being boots on the ground, and you as well, that it doesn't work that way.
You can't order it like a McDonald's drive-through.
I would offer that we know demons can attach themselves to people, or we'll say malevolent energies, entities.
Yeah.
And I believe they can kill people. I mean, ultimately, the goal of possession is death. So, but I don't think they could do it.
Yeah.
I think the odds that they can do it in the instant at that moment, like you said, just like pointing a finger and killing someone, if they could do that, they would be. Right. And we're not seeing that.
No.
Yeah,
but
and they're not.
They will attach them.
It's the influence.
But there is a way they can get to
They
it.
will influence.
Because,
It's the influence. They're not allowed to do it directly. It's the influence. And the ultimate goal of them is to take over the will of the human being, to take over the will of the human spirit, to be able to control that will, and eventually try and, as people say, take the soul. But at the end of the day, nobody can take your soul. God has your soul. But to destroy the human form, to destroy that human spark, that divine spark within it. And so they will be able to manipulate others to do it. They will also be able to influence you to carry out atrocities, or even on yourself to carry out, the ultimate act of maybe suicide or something. So,
right. I mean, I've come across several cases in my studies. I mean, like you just talked about your case incident with Mr. Kramer.
Yeah.
These things are known and have been known to push people to take their lives, and it has happened.
Absolutely. Then I've always said, I think we talked about this before when we were chatting. I say, the diabolical battlefield is the mind. It's not necessarily the phenomena that's external to you. The mind is your battlefield, and I'll never forget, I was under subjugation for a long time. And it took me to tears. I'll never forget, being on my knees praying in the middle of the night and just to stop, just to please let it stop, and the mind is the battlefield, and that is where you need to be stronger in any way, because even if you say the prayer to Archangel Michael, if your mind is not focused and your heart's not focused and you're totally not in that space between mind, body, and soul developing it has no power. The words itself are just words. They have to blend that divine power of mind, body, and spirit. And so this is where the ultimate, and this is what I'll venture. I was asked this recently, and it was fascinating. I would venture this. People asked me recently, what about in exorcisms, the exorcisms that fail, that the priests actually fail? And I will venture an opinion, and I will say, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, this is an opinion based on my perception and my study. I would think that sometimes when that has happened, the actual priest or the vicar or the pastor or the Buddhist or whoever it is not sufficiently divinely attuned, ready, or in preparation for it, and their power does not. It's not just in the word; it's in the mind, body, and soul in the word. The ritual Romanum, any of these things, as far as I'm concerned, are just words. The words are only powerful when the mind, body, and the soul are brought together as one. And so this is why I say the battlefield is the mind. You strengthen the mind, and you strengthen the will, and you strengthen your power there and your discernment. The rest becomes a lot easier to deal with.
Your wisdom is valid.
Right. Okay, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We'll be right back with our guest for the next segment.
Impeachment Talk. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. House Judiciary Committee Democrats today offering some mixed signals about whether they're on the road to impeaching President Trump. Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin.
I would say we are in an impeachment investigation. And as to the results of the investigation, it could lead to articles of impeachment or it could lead to something else.
Committee Chair Jerry Nadler says he wants grand jury evidence collected by the special counsel's probe into Russian election meddling as the investigation into the president's actions continue. Earlier, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was asked about impeachment.
We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed, not one day sooner.
President Trump continues calling the investigation a witch hunt, telling Fox News it was treason and should never be allowed to happen again. President Trump today threatening to retaliate against France for adopting attacks on internet giants like Google, Amazon, and Facebook. The tax primarily targets companies that use consumer data to sell online advertising. The president tweeting that if anybody taxes American technology companies, it should be their home country. Referencing French President Emmanuel Macron, he added, "We will announce a substantial reciprocal action on Macron's foolishness shortly." Acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan today discussing accusations that detained migrants aren't provided with clean drinking water.
No one is drinking out of toilets. No one has been told to drink out of toilets. There's water available. There was water available right outside the holding area that the Congresswoman claimed that this happened.
McAleenan's comments coming in an interview with Fox News. An Alabama school system is delaying the August 1st start of classes for several days because of what officials describe as a malware attack. Houston County Superintendent David Sewell says an apparent attack of the district's servers affected phones and computers throughout the Southeast Alabama system. This is Fox News.
At TD Ameritrade, they're reinventing how you invest. Whether you want to place a trade on Facebook Messenger or get market news from your smart speaker, TD Ameritrade's technology is designed to bring the market to you. See what's new at tdameritrade.com/innovation. Member SIPC.
New tensions on the Korean peninsula.
North Korea describing its latest missile launches as a solemn warning to South Korea. State TV running a message accusing South Korea of suicidal acts. First, buying high-tech weapons like American fighter jets, and second, planning joint military exercises with the US. The message doesn't attack the United States, suggesting the North may be leaving the door open to restarting nuclear weapons talks. But South Korea says this launch of a new weapon represents a military threat. Simon Owen, Fox News.
Moroccan authorities say that 15 people have been killed in a landslide that buried their van under more than 60 feet of earth. There were no survivors. The dead include a 6-year-old child. Heavy rainfall triggered multiple landslides in the area, blocking a road connecting Casablanca to southern Morocco and hindering rescue efforts. More than 24 shelter cats mauled when a number of dogs escaped their cages.
A number of pit bulls figured a way to break out of their cages at the animal shelter in Dothan, Alabama, and made a rush for their sworn enemies, the cats. 29 felines were mauled to death by the dogs during the overnight hours. The shelter director says the pit bulls, which were dropped off at the shelter the day before, were able to eat through the pens and knock out the galvanized bars, keeping them contained. Dothan's mayor says the shelter is outdated, and this shows they need a more modern one. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Travelers faced a second day of travel disruptions in Britain today after a heat wave gave way to thunderstorms and technical problems at the Air Traffic Control Center, which grounded many flights at the country's 2 main airports. This is on one of the busiest days of the year. It's not yet clear whether the matter was related to the hot weather or the ensuing thunderstorms. I'm Rich Dennison, and this is Fox News.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paraversal Universe, now in our second hour, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Virginia, WCET-FM out of South Carolina, and High Point Radio on the top of New Jersey. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, coming to you from northern Wisconsin in the USA, here at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center in Rylander. You can always enjoy excellent fringe talk radio for informative and awesome content. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy, so check that out. Stream live on TuneIn's, iTunes, and the Paranormal Livestream app, available from Android app and the iTunes Store. This segment is brought to you by the Supernatural Magazine, where our articles can be read. All right, back to Paraversal Universe. And we were speaking with evidential medium and spirit interventionalist Jock Brocas from the Paranormal Daily News and Deadly Departed.
I would like to say really quickly that this week, the paranormal field lost yet another wonderful person. Yeah. She was one heck of an author and investigator, and she will be missed. Rosemary, may you rest in peace, and may your family be comforted during this difficult time.
And you know the sad thing is, Jen, that there's already people that are exploiting that already. I saw a post by John earlier. You know, there's people that are exploiting that already. You know, it's crazy, it's ridiculous, and you know, and amazing. I've never met her, didn't know her, but I know her work, and that was enough.
Yeah, we're aware of that too.
Oh yeah, I think one of my favorite books by her that we got in our library was the book she did on the Vengeful Jinn. And yeah, you're right. People just seem to make they do this every time somebody of notoriety passes away, and it's just it's.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the next couple of days when mediums start to claim that she's communicating, and I think that's just very ignorant. That the family need to grieve, and she was very, very, very well respected in this world, and her books have helped so many people. So a great pioneer has been lost, and we're going to show our reverence to her in Paranormal Daily News. I'm going to get one of my editors to write a really good, but we'll wait until it dies down and everybody's done it. We'll write a really, really good expose on her work.
Actually, that's what we're doing, or we're going to do with Ken Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Hint, hint.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get it in.
Yep. That will be that will be submitted to Paranormal Daily News.
Yes.
We write for Supernatural Magazine, and we have for years. But we also have the freedom to also submit stuff elsewhere, and we do from time to time, just because we make so many friends, and there's so many good people out there. And considering your knowledge base and your specialty and your wisdom, it's just.
I love that.
I think that would be a good spot for it. I do.
It is. Actually, I'm really excited because I know we're is jumping off subject here, but I have recently spoken to the Parapsychological Foundation, and we're going to be developing some links there. And I've reactivated. I'm opening up a section for parapsychology there, so that we can actually have educational, scholastic articles on the paranormal from parapsychologists and papers and things like that. So I'm excited about bringing that section to it as well, so that it really will be a great educational resource, and it will have both sides of the coin. So hopefully as well, it will educate people out there that are not so well educated, and I do mean the weekend thrill seekers.
Right, the weekend thrill seekers. I like how you termed that when we were interviewed before. When you interviewed us, you had mentioned that, and that's exactly that. There's definitely that split between the part-time hobbyist and those that are doing this seriously for whatever reason they're doing it for, but are doing it seriously and are investing a lot of time.
Absolutely.
And
we just had a debut article from Larry Lawson, who runs FPBI in Florida. He's a great paranormal investigator, ex-cop, quite high up as well. He's just, and exactly, talking about that, because he's very passionate about it. He's very professional, and he just wrote an article on that subject matter, actually. And that's what, go and read it, Kev. It's really good.
Yes. I came across the post earlier today. I seen it, and I didn't have time to read it, but I will. I definitely will.
Oh yeah, I think you'll like it. It's exactly how we think. Making the divisions and professionalism within the field.
Right. Yeah, if we didn't have the show today, I would have taken the time. That's how I came across it. Was going through some stuff, getting ready for the show. I said, "Oh,
lovely guy,
awesome." So let's see. I jotted. We got that. And so we have your book here, and I want to get back into the contents because there are. I could pick any one of these and ask you about them, and we decided not to go through all of them. Obviously, that would take too long, and you don't want to give away
any spoilers for anybody who hasn't read this.
Yeah, read the book. Yeah.
But like for example, you have do understand your psychic abilities, and you start the book with that. And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because everybody is psychic. Everybody has a natural inbuilt intuition. That is the gift that we all have. It's part of our divine makeup. And before you even go and study anything in the paranormal or mediumship or anything, it's very well to try and understand what it is that divinely makes you and makes you unique. And we have this, if you like, this natural compass within us. We have the gift of clairvoyance. We have these, mediumship is just not for the spiritually gifted. It's like anything. Anybody can do it, but some people will be able to play a symphony on the piano, and other people will be able to play Chinese, chopsticks. So, and not go much further. So, and some people will be able to sing, and other people will not be able to hold a note in a bucket. So, but it doesn't mean that they're not doing the actual act of singing or the actual act of playing the piano. So, we all have that gift. We've all at some point in our life had an intuitive experience. Even skeptics, even though they don't want to admit it, they have. It's beneficial to understand that aspect of ourselves, to be able to not only help us in our life, to help us make the right choices, but to also help to make us aware of the spiritual power we have within. And obviously, the spiritual power that we can discern that makes us, we felt it before. Like, I'll just give a little example. You can meet someone and you really love them and you get a great vibe from them and you think, I quite like that guy, I quite like chatting to him. And then you can meet somebody else and, your hairs are on end, your hackles are up, and that, there's magnetic repulsion there rather than attraction. And so that's part of your intuition kind of warning you that that's not much in your vibration. And that's kind of the way I like to liken, trying to learn the very, very basics of discerning between a malevolent spirit and a benevolent spirit. And you'll only get to that point by understanding the divine gifts that you have, appreciating them, and working to recognize them and develop them. So when I wrote the book, I wanted people to immediately get into the point of, hey, this is what you have. This is what's here. This is what you can develop. And you'll notice that the way I've written the book, the scary stuff doesn't come until the way in, until nearer the end. Because I'm taking the person through a journey of development, whether they're grieving or whether they're developing. I'm taking them through that journey to prepare them. And the other thing I'll say is that the book is empowering. It's not. A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's scaremongering." It's not scaremongering. The people that say it's scaremongering have never read the book, and the people that have read the book love it, absolutely love it, and they see the benefit of it. And they realize it's not scaremongering. So people that say that it's scaremongering, don't even own a copy. I've never bought it. I think there's a lot in there for developing mediums, and there's a lot in there for your average person. One of the greatest, I think, reviews I actually had was from a mother from her family who said, reading this book has helped to change my perception. It's helped me to understand how I can protect my own family, and how I can recognize my own power and my own, their own divine authority. And she's not a medium, not a paranormal investigator, nothing. That's just a family. That's a mom, as you would say here. It's a mom who was interested, who's, maybe learned a little bit to help her through her grief journey. And also, it educates the person who's grieving to be able to identify a real medium.
Yeah, it's like we talked about this too when you had us on, and I think one of the things that I thought was really valuable out of the whole entire book. I mean, the whole book was valuable in itself, but one of the things that I thought that sticked out, because not many people cover this, is the workings of your spirit guide and how to know whether or not you're communicating with an actual spirit guide or something else pretending to be. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I did a recent. This was actually even more. I did another video on YouTube, and anybody who's listening, go to YouTube and watch the fake spirit guides video. But yeah, see, here's the thing: when people are developing, there's two quick that they need to know who the spirit guides are. Now, let's take this down to brass tacks. If I'm so desperate to know who my spirit guide is, I have put a request out to the spirit, to the other side, that I need to know who my spirit guide is. That signal is being picked up not only by benevolent but benevolent forces, and there's a true saying The devil can come in the form of light and as a being of light and trick you. And we have got examples. I mean, we only just need to look at the examples of Padre Pio, right?
Right.
Padre Pio, you know, very pious individual, but he and St. Francis, they were visited by demonic beings that made themselves effigies, is that the right word? Probably not. Made themselves a being of light, came forward as a being of light. Mother Teresa had it. They had, and I'm not just picking on the Catholic, the Catholic faith, just because my understanding was there, I can pick these, but there's other examples. And so these beings can come as a being of light. So there's a truth to it. And if you even read the Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis, I think that's a fabulous book, because there's a lot of hidden lessons in C.S. Lewis's book, the Screw Tape Letters. And I love it. I love Uncle Wormwood, or whatever his name is. But there's a lot of lessons in there, and it kind of shows you how he was thinking and where his knowledge has come from as well. And so when someone's so desperate to try and find out who the spirit guide is, I don't see why they should be, because it doesn't really matter. That'll develop over time. But if they're not sufficiently developed, if they're not sufficiently in tune, or they're not sufficiently vibrating at a rate where they have a good level of discernment, they can easily be duped by a malevolent intelligence putting on that facade of being a loving and guiding spirit guide. And you know as well as I do, they can't keep up that facade for long. They will have to show themselves. The seed is sown. They have to show themselves, because by the very nature of them being evil, they can't always continually be good, because at the end of the day, they would be good and not evil. So they can create this mask and this to gain your trust, to break down those barriers and to allow them into your life. So I'm a great belief in teaching people to develop relationships properly, to discern their spirit guides, and to recognize those subtle things. See, here's the other thing. Some people will be working with the spirit guides, and then they'll feel a little bit off, and they'll start to feel a bit depressed, and they'll go a bit down, and they'll start to have maybe arguments with people. And they just think it's just them in their life, and they don't realize that it's possible. I'm not saying that it's always the case, but isn't it possible that those negative feelings are masqueraded from an external influence to you, that maybe you're not like that normally, but all of a sudden and it wouldn't be all of a sudden, that's wrong, but over a period of time you're being broken down. You're starting to trust this guide, but you're starting to feel bad at the same time. So I've actually had a lot of people approach me and write to me personally who have had bad experiences with supposed spirit guides, and they have been working. And here's the thing: this really interesting, guys. It's not as if the spirit guides were bad instantly, straight away. I mean, yes, you can have that, but some of these examples that I've had, it has taken them months and months, if not even longer, to recognize that this wasn't the right guide, or this wasn't the right spirit that's been working with them for so long, turns out to be malevolent and not benevolent. So I think it's really, really important, really, really, really fundamentally important to develop that aspect and to understand it as much as you possibly can, and not just to accept anything from a guide. There's so many people live their life by what their guides say. I mean, they'll go to shop in Walmart and they'll be like, shall I get chicken or beef today? Or let's say their guide's name's Cecil or something. Not that would be, Cecil, what should I do in their mind? And, they start to live their life, and it's like mediumship for people who are not learning or not going through the grieving process. They use a medium or a psychic as a crutch for their life. They're not learning anything. They're not developing. Well, it's the same with mediums and spirit guides, or developing mediums. They may not be learning anything because they're continually living their life through their spirit guide. They can't do anything for themselves unless they go and connect with a spirit guide and ask them. I mean, seriously. And you know as well as I do, I mean, we had Red Cloud that got it wrong back in a seance back in the day, said there would be World War II, and lo and behold, there was World War II. So spirit guides are also they're not infallible or fallible. Am I saying the right word?
Yeah. We have to cut you off because it's time actually for our next commercial break. We'll
Sorry.
continue the discussion in a moment. No, it's okay. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. Before we get back to the show, let's take a quick minute to during this hour to specifically mention the radio call dials for the AM, FM terrestrial stations who carry Paraversal Universe, including WCET, of course, which is located on 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, and also on High Point Radio, which can be found 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, which broadcasts in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So hello to all of you who are tuning in over the airwaves. Thank you so much, and we are glad you are with us. This segment is brought to you by the Parasociology like page on Facebook. Parasociology is the study of how paranormal manifestations and experiences can affect a family, group, or collective. Parasociology also examines how spirituality is practiced in different cultures. So go check that out and leave a like for future content. And back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we're talking to Jock Brocas from the Paranormal Daily News and author of Deadly Departed. Are you with us, Jock?
Yeah, we kind of got carried away the last section, don't we?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Would you like to finish your thought?
Yeah, it's one of them times where the time skips when you're enjoying yourself.
Right. Would you like to finish your thought, or did you cut him off, or?
Well, here's the thing: is if anybody wants to ask anything about spirit guides and anything, I'm happy. Here's what I will say: anybody who has got a question, unlike a lot of other people out there, anybody who's got a question about anything, they are happy to message me and answer. And what I normally do is I will answer them, and I will answer them in a video lesson so that everybody gets the benefit of it. And no question is, too silly or not. I mean, if it's serious about the paranormal or anything like that, But I think there's a grave danger. I think, as we said beforehand, the understanding and the relationship of spirit guides is perhaps probably one of the most fundamental, weakest points that can cause people problems, even more so than even Ouija boards, which incidentally I saw one for sale in a bookshop the other day. This was crazy for a kid. It's just nuts to me how people will just accept anything from the spirit world as gospel.
What's interesting to me is that, like with Ouija boards, if you look at the stages of possession, the first one is invitation, and here we have some that is actually marketed for kids. To
invite spirits,
right? I mean, now the people putting this stuff out are not stupid. There is intent behind this.
Yes.
There is a bigger picture than one may think. But yeah, it's just like when people say, well, why are Ouija boards so significant? Well, there's one answer right there.
Well, it's methodological, because if you look at it, they have pink boards, they have blue boards, they have camouflage boards, they come with little planchettes. They even have question cards that you can ask.
And have alien boards now.
And angel boards, which to me is...
And at the end of the day, guys, the board is innocuous. The board really doesn't matter. It's the intent, and it's the people's request, their collective consciousness, and what they put out there as a signal. It's like a flag.
Yeah.
Hey, here, I'm over here. Come and get me. Yep, no, over here. I'm here. I'm available. I'm open, and I want to communicate. And it's crazy.
Yeah. Some people say, well, there's no difference between a Ouija board and any other tool. And
I would tend to agree with that, Kev, because you could make anything, you could use anything as a focal point to communicate or invite or something. And dependent what vibration that thing is, probably depends on what you would get.
Well, tool is
everything holds a vibration.
Right. So we have a question for you from the chat room. Out of all the cases that you've worked, what was your most difficult case?
I would have to say the most difficult case was when a young family. I was involved in a case where the young family just got together. They just had a new baby, and pardon the French, but all hell broke loose within their family. And it turned out that his parents had crossed over, and he was left the home, and the home had its issues, and probably I would say he didn't realize his parents were involved in black masses and Satanism until it was too late. And so he became Christian. He met a young woman, and I think that for me was probably the most difficult thing to deal with because of the fact there was a young child involved. The second case I would say is the one where, when I was involved in it in Scotland, it was quite rough, and that was the time that I was subjugated, and it was merely so much. There was some phenomena. Yes, there was some phenomena. There was a lot of playing with Ouija board. Actually, funny enough, we talked about that, and that was the issue with it. But the worst thing for me was me being attacked in my mind continually, and taking me to tears and taking me to the floor. You know, I think you've got to experience it. I've experienced things. I've had a scratch on my leg and all that kind of stuff, and that happens. But I think the worst thing to ever feel, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Jen, is the mind, the complete trying to take the will and the mind. And the thing is, if you're going to get involved in a case, or you're going to get involved in something where a family is under subjugation or needs help, they know that you're coming. That intelligence knows you're going to be involved, and it starts way before you get involved. And it starts to try and target you way before you get involved. The interesting thing, and this is really weird, I spoke about this in another show. If a case is going to be serious, I'm going to dream about it 3 days before it happens. If it's not serious and people approach me and there's nothing really remotely malevolent about it, I don't have any dream or anything about it. And it's really weird. Serious cases that I get involved in, which are few and far between, I have to admit, I dream about them 3 days before, and it's really strange. But I think the worst one was involved in the north of Scotland with witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. And I had another case in Wales. And it was primarily to do with Ouija boards, and it really wasn't demoniacal. But the one up there was, and that was when, you know, I was totally and utterly targeted and subjugated in my mind. And I can deal with any phenomena that happens in anywhere. But the most frightening thing is when it starts to try and take your own mind and take your will. And that's the worst. And that's why, if I have to get involved in anything, I have a total massive, you know, I go through so much preparation and prayer and fasting, and I won't go into anywhere. I have one today that I might have to go to LA for, and I told them today, if I do it, I'm going to be fasting and I'm going to be praying, and I'm going to be wanting a lot of time before I even go there to even go into the place, or to even look at it or get involved in it, and we'll see how it goes. But the most frightening thing for me is the time when your mind gets taken, to try to take your mind over, because that's horrible. You can deal with phenomena that's external to you, but it's very difficult to deal with what's going on in your mind. When that attack is launched on you, I think it's the worst thing that anybody could go through.
Right. I've had instances and cases that we've worked when we've dealt with negative stuff. You know, I've had visits from these things days or even nights before.
Absolutely.
You know, if I had it to where of course they know. They definitely do. They know from the time that family reaches out to you and first contact is made. They know. You know, it's like the same thing. When
I have a case. I have a case I want to share with you, and this is actually quite a good case. I won't mention the name or anything, because I'm still in touch with this family. But I got a letter from them. This individual had been subjugated by spiritual forces for many years, and here's the interesting thing. It was termed as schizophrenic, and he was ill, and he was on medication and everything for many, 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 many years. And they were suffering, and some of the things that he was going through was horrific. And he got to the point where they just couldn't deal with the medical people anymore or anything like that, and eventually came across my desk, and I was recommended. And I'm delighted to say that with the right knowledge and the right information and spending time with that person and prayer and developing, that person is now no longer on meds, anything, and has a great life and doesn't have anything. And I had a beautiful letter from his mother and father about giving their family back after 27 years of subjugation. That's why I do this, I think, more than anything. I mean, that in itself, it just speaks volumes of the power of divine intervention. And that's a really nice case. But there's an example of someone who was under spiritual subjugation that was manifested as a medical condition, but the medical and even psychological and psychiatric couldn't deal with it, and it just wasn't happening for them.
Right. And unfortunately, that's common practice nowadays. You sit there and you wonder how many cases you hear about you don't handle of people being in hospitals and institutions being labeled as having some kind of a mental illness when they don't. They, in fact, have some kind of an attachment. I mean, there are even cases of people who have both going on.
Oh, yeah. And that's what. And then here's the thing: is once you've got someone who's in that, getting subjugated that way, it's almost like a white spider's web. It starts to spread out to the rest of their environment, and it affects everybody else.
Well, it's the most significant cases are the ones that have the emotional distress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's in the mind. It's not I've said this. It's not the phenomena, guys. Listen. You can go in and investigate. Anybody who's listening there, if you're part of a paranormal team and you go in there and the phenomena's there, you look at some of the cases recently where paranormal investigators have even questioned their own sanity because of what was going on in their mind and what was going on. Not the phenomena, not a picture falling off the wall or some other type of external phenomena. It's the fear that encroaches upon their emotion, their mind, their very being. That's the worst thing. That's why, I work 24/7 and trying to keep that strong. And after experiencing what I experienced before in the case I was involved in, I'll never let it slip. I will never make a mistake again. And I did of not making myself prepared enough. Because it only needs one little slip, kind of like a Freudian slip. It only needs one little slip for something to try and get in. And if you're going to go into a place where it's the spiritual subjugation happening, you need to be prepared because if you've got any particular weakness, it's going to play on your weakness. If you've got any particular fear, it's going to play on your fear. If you've got, if you question yourself in any way, it's going to make you question more. If it's intelligent. I mean, I've said this. We've talked about this. These are intelligent forces beyond us. So you have to work hard and learning and developing yourself. It's not even learning theory. It's developing your internal. It's developing your divine authority. Developing your spiritual power, developing your discernment to be able to help people. Because I've said, mediums, not every medium is going to deal with this. And I've said time and time again, mediums are never ever going to come across it. But what happens if you are that person, that medium, that is approached because a family is suffering? Are you going to turn them away and say it doesn't exist? Because you have to deal with it. You'll have to deal with the emotion, and you will have to deal with it in your mind. So you may as well be prepared.
Okay, everybody. And with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You're listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Alrighty, we're back, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, and we are glad you are with us as always. There are some Facebook group pages we want you to check out. The Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one, which is dedicated to investigating conspiracies, crimes, and corruption. And also check out Lake Monstrosities, dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonders. Feel free to join them both. We would love to see you there. Each network mentioned has a group and like page on Facebook as well. So go check that out for upcoming content and shows. This segment is brought to you by the 5-star Reader's Choice Award-winning epic fantasy trilogy Helm by Robert L. Malik. Excellent epic fantasy. And back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we're talking to evidential medium Jock Brocas from the Paranormal Daily News and author of Deadly Departed. And for our last segment, I feel it is only fitting, considering what we've been discussing, that we discuss another one of the parts of your book, which is don't underestimate the need for protection.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting because so many people don't actually take, even paranormal teams don't actually take protection as serious as they should. And again, it boils down to, you say your prayers, your mind, body, and your soul. For instance, even before this show, I had my own little routine that I did to make sure I was protected, and before any show, because I'm not stupid enough to ignore the fact that I'm going to be a target. And, if we're going to try and educate people on the malevolent forces out there that can try and destroy humanity or people's soul, not so much their souls, but their mind and their bodies and turn their lives upside down, of course we're going to be a target. And so any paranormal team that goes in to help anybody who's possibly under, spiritual attack or anything like that, it's not just about, I cover myself in a bubble of white light and that's me done, or I say a little prayer and that's me done, because that's not you done. And there's been many evidences of people where they think they're protected and they get attacked. You have to, it's a whole process of not only praying, but it's your whole aspect of your mind, your body, your soul. It's your whole, the way you approach it, even down to before you go into something, the food that you eat, the vibration that you're at, the media that you contain, that you consume. It's everything that can possibly cause a weak link in a chain.
Yeah.
Right. When you do. Wait a
minute. I lost you. Hang on. My earbuds ran out of time. So I noticed I'd lost you there.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. Apple needs to develop some earbuds that last for 4 hours when we're doing these shows.
I was gonna say was I agree with you. When you do the kind of work that we do, the first thing that you need to do to keep protected and just strong and your wisdom and your work is putting on that full armor of God every morning.
Absolutely. It's understanding the power of Christ, it's understanding the power of God, whatever you believe in, but also it's also under your environment. I mean, let's say, for instance, you, me, and Kevin, we were going to go into a place that was under, spiritual attack, and one of us was in a bad mood, or one of us had possibly eaten something wrong and, dropped our vibration a bit, or one of us had been swearing like a trooper or had negative thought processes, that person's just as much a danger as in the group than anybody. So it ain't just about yourself also. It's about the people in your environment and the team that you're working with, the people that you're working with. Everybody has to be serious about it.
Right.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Amen.
Hallelujah, brother. I'm going to get some people doing that. But so I would say anybody who's out there, even if you're studying this, now here's the thing. We study everything all the time. If there's something that's there, if there's knowledge that we want to gain from back in the past in demonology, history, or anything, we will study it. They know that you're studying it. I had to say recently to a colleague, stop it. You're doing it too much. You're not protecting yourself the way that you should be. And you're constantly infatuated with it. Now, infatuation and interest in studying is different. If you're infatuated with a subject matter like demonology or this aspect of things, the infatuation in itself is like an invitation. And it's also opening you up. So even before I study anything, I pray.
Yeah.
And I pray after.
Yep.
We and you have to, especially when I do the same thing with my demonology studies. Oh, yes. Anybody that gets into this, Jock is right. You need to take breaks and step away.
Yeah, and put in as...
You do. You need to
all the time that you have to put into the dark stuff, make sure you're also putting in the same amount of time, minimally, in honoring God and praying and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, don't let it consume you, because it's like, again, like, Jock said a couple of minutes ago, these things will visit you, and they want to see who you are and what you're doing, because you're studying information on beings that don't want you to have that.
Yeah, here's another thing, and this might, and people might hate me for this, and it could be a Scotsman. I enjoy a glass of wine or a wee whiskey or something every now and again, but I will do it in my home, right? There's very few times in my life, because of the work that I do, I won't drink alcohol or anything outside. Maybe if I'm at a party or somebody's home, I'll maybe take one or something. I just won't do it outside. And the reason I don't do it is because I don't want my spiritual faculties nullified, because I know I'm a target.
Right.
Whereas if I'm in my own home, I can relax in my own home. It's my space. I've taken the relevant precautions so I can sit and have a wee dram at home. I can enjoy it. I won't do it outside. And the reason I don't do it is not because any Scotsman who doesn't drink it, the reason I don't do it is that reason, is because of the work that I do. I don't want to put myself open to spiritual forces I don't want.
So we have 5 minutes before we have to do our closing. So with that last 5 minutes, do you have anything coming up you'd like to promote? Do you have any websites you'd like to share? Book stuff, events?
Anything.
Do you know what I would say? I'm actually going to be teaching. I'm going to be teaching in Florida. I don't promote a lot of my workshops and things because I try to attract the right people. I'm not interested in having loads of people, but I do teach workshops. I do go out and people approach me to go and run private workshops, and I do that. So if anybody wants to be taught, then I do that in the right timing and the right way. I'm going to be teaching in Florida in September. I have a number of events that I'm working on at the moment, Parawise, which we're going to be announcing soon, and you guys will be involved in that as well. And I have once a year I've decided I'm going to be running training for professional mediums and investigators that will only be done once a year, and it will help professionals to develop over a number of years to be able to deal with this kind of stuff. I'm going to be doing that. I'm working on the second aspect of the book, but I think anybody who, I can promote my website like anybody else, jockbrocas.com, but go to my YouTube channel. There's tons of videos there. And if you want to learn something that people are not teaching you, ask the question and I'll teach you. I'm happy to share my knowledge what knowledge and what wisdom I have, I'm happy to share with humanity so that it makes humanity stronger. So, go to my YouTube channel. If I have an event, then I will publicize it in the right time, at the right way. September event is already done. It's not the kind of thing, although I work as a medium and I work like any other medium does, and I teach workshops like any other medium, but this kind of side of things, it's not the kind of thing that you just go out and run workshops in. It's not the kind of thing that you promote left, right, and centre. It has to be done with the right people at the right time and in divine timing, I think. So keep in touch and learn and ask anything, and I'm happy to share.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on and share your wisdom with us.
Yeah, we both greatly appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, guys. And thank you to everybody who asked questions in the chat room. I really appreciate it. I hope that I gave you enough to think about. And at the end of the day, learn with an open heart, learn with an open mind, and make sure that you keep God first place in your mind.
All righty. We'd like to thank Psychic Jock Brocas for being such an informative and awesome guest. Next week, we will have on Alexander Petikoff, and we will be discussing cryptozoology and the films he makes concerning cryptids, and the nonfiction films, I should say, documentaries. So he will be our guest next week. And feel free to support any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. Good night. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next time.
Good night, everyone.
God bless.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.